I recall the first moment I genuinely comprehended emptiness. Not a void, but a possibility. I was practicing with my guru, pushing myself beyond what I believed was possible, when he abruptly stopped me. "Your cup is full," he murmured, not unkindly. "How can you accept anything new when you're already overflowing with what you think you know?" His comments hit me harder than any physical blow I'd ever suffered. I stood there, drenched in perspiration, my body suffering. But it was my head that felt the full force of his insight. That voice comes to you too, doesn't it? I can see it in your eyes now. That assurance, that sense of security stems from your existing convictions. That aversion to anything that might threaten the universe you've carefully crafted in your imagination. But listen carefully, because what I'm about to say isn't simply philosophy, it's liberty, a technique to get free from your own self-imposed cage. A path to power that most people will never take because they are too terrified to recognize their own emptiness. You see, I'd arrived that day, proud of my progress, confident in my understanding, and anxious to demonstrate rather than learn. In that instant, with those few words, my instructor revealed to me the most formidable opponent I would ever face. Not the great boxers in the arena, not the naysayers who thought I was too little, too different, or too ambitious. No, my greatest adversary was the illusion of knowledge that lived within me, the voice that murmured, "Already know enough." I grew up in Hong Kong as a child actor, and by the age of 6, I had formed preconceptions about who I was and what the world expected of me. By the age of 13, I was training Wing Chun under the legendary Ip Man, soaking up his teachings like a sponge. But as determined as I was, I still didn't comprehend what it meant to learn. I was gathering skills, knowledge, and filled my cup to the brim with shapes, motions, and philosophy. I believed mastery meant adding more methods, knowledge, and strength. It wasn't until years later, after countless hours of training and building my own martial art in Jeet Kune Do, that I realized the paradox at the heart of true mastery. The more you know, the more you must be willing to let go. The higher your ability, the more you must return to emptiness. The stronger you are, the more you need to embrace your weakness. This is the reality that has changed my life, my art, and my entire concept of what it means to evolve as a person. And it is this reality that I wish to share with you today, not as an abstract concept, but as a daily practice that may transform every part of your life. Consider how you handle life right now. What do you do when faced with a challenge? Most people quickly look for solutions in what they already know. They rely on their previous experiences, collected knowledge, and comfortable beliefs about how the world works. Attempt to address new problems using old thinking. They attempt to generate new possibilities while their minds are crowded by the old. It's like attempting to pour new water into a cup already full of stagnant liquid. No matter how pure or life-giving the new water is, it merely spills over the edges, unable to replace what already exists. Your mind functions in the same way. Where is there room for creativity if it's already clogged with prejudices, judgments, and rigid beliefs? For growth, for transformation. I recall when I first arrived in America, I carried with me not only my physical training, but also a mind full of cultural preconceptions, traditional practices, and beliefs about how martial arts should be taught and practiced. If I had held to these, refused to empty my cup, would Jeet Kune Do have existed? Would I have been able to look past the constraints of old styles and develop something genuine, adaptive, and truly representative of reality rather than rigid form? No. The birth of Jeet Kune Do necessitated first a funeral, the death of my commitment to what I believed I knew. I had to let go of the comforting certainties, the security of tradition, and the safety of established structures. Only then could something new emerge, not by filling the empty space, but by allowing the emptiness to become the path. This is what I mean by empty your cup. It is not about getting uninformed, it's about making room, allows for additional possibilities, allows for honest expression. There is room for truth that goes beyond the limits of your existing comprehension. Let me tell you about a youngster who visited my school in Oakland. He was already an experienced martial artist with black belts in 2 distinct schools. His motions were accurate, and his skills had been thoroughly practiced. However, something was missing, a fluidity, spontaneity, and life force that no amount of technical excellence could produce. During his first lesson, I asked him to demonstrate his talents. He performed brilliantly, with each movement precisely following the principles he had studied. When he was finished, I asked him to do something different, respond to my actions without thinking, without relying on his training, and without attempting to impress me with what he knew. He could not accomplish it. His head was so full of proper procedures, so preoccupied with the precise ways to move, that he had lost the ability to simply be, to answer truthfully to the situation. His cup was not only full, but brimming with information that had become a prison rather than a pathway to liberation. For 3 months, we did not work on developing new procedures. Instead, we worked to empty his cup, on letting go of his desire to look well, be right, and act correctly. Something spectacular occurred over time as he let go of his preconceived notions about martial arts. His innate abilities began to surface. His unique expression began to flow. He stopped fighting himself, questioning his instincts, and evaluating his responses through the lens of his acquired knowledge. One day, during a sparring practice, I witnessed it. That moment of pure emptiness that gives birth to genuine force. There was no deliberation in his movement, no delay, and no mental conflict between impulse and action. He had finally drained his cup, discovering something far more precious than any method he had ever acquired. He discovered himself, his actual self, free from rigid thinking and able to respond to life with all of his being. This is the emancipation you may experience right now in every aspect of your life. But it takes courage, the fortitude to admit that what you believe you know is actually getting in the way, the bravery to let go of ideas, beliefs, and techniques that may have benefited you in the past, but are now impeding your progress, the fortitude to be empty, even if only for a time, so that something genuine might arise from within you, rather than being imposed from without. Consider the areas in your life where you feel stuck, where progress appears unattainable, where delight has been replaced by habit, and passion has given way to obligation. Look closely and you'll notice a cup that's too full, a mind packed with certainty, judgment, and fixed perspectives on yourself and the world around you. These are not benefiting you. They are limiting you. They are the invisible prison walls that keep you living much below your full potential. I've seen fighters grow so devoted to their style that they can't adjust. I've seen it in businesses that are so sure of their approach that they fail to innovate and fall behind. I've seen it in relationships when people believe they know their partner so well that they cease seeing them, listening to them, and growing together. Only when you have the bravery to pour out everything you believe you know and stand humble in front of the endless possibilities of the present moment does the fullness of knowledge transform into the emptiness. Wisdom. The first premise is awareness. You can't empty something you don't identify as full. Most people go through life oblivious of their own rigidity, unaware of how their acquired knowledge constrains rather than liberates them. They do not question their preconceptions. They do not analyze their views. They don't see how their minds instantly filter new knowledge to fit what they already believe they understand. Awareness begins with a simple question: what am I certain about? Examine your certainties about yourself, others, and how the universe operates. These certainties may feel like foundations, but they are frequently ceilings, unseen barriers that hinder you from progressing to new levels of understanding. The more your assurance, the more important it is to challenge it. I recall how certain I was about the ideal method to throw a punch when I first created my own training program. I had researched biomechanics, determined the most effective path of movement, and tested many ways in innumerable fighting situations. My assurance was based on true knowledge and experience. But one day, while training with a pupil whose body form was radically different from mine, I noticed him gaining more strength with a movement that went against everything I thought I knew about perfect technique. In that moment, I had a choice: defend my certainty or empty my cup. I chose emptiness. I let go of and right way, and embraced this new potential. That single moment of humility, of readiness to examine what I thought I knew, triggered a complete shift in my understanding of how diverse body types necessitate distinct representations of the same idea. If I had held to my confidence, evolution would never have occurred. This is the exercise of awareness, noticing when you're overly attached to what you believe you know, when you're defending your limitations, rather than pushing beyond them. Keep an eye out for resistance when fresh knowledge challenges long-held views. Feel the discomfort that arises when reality does not meet your expectations. These are not cues to withdraw into certainty. They're invitations to empty your cup. Second principle is action. Awareness without action is just philosophy. Nothing changes. To properly empty your cup, you must actively release your attachments rather than simply recognize them. This is where most people fail. They may understand intellectually the importance of emptying their cup, and they may even see areas where their thinking has become inflexible, but they lack the courage to let go, to stand in the vulnerability of not knowing, to welcome the temporary confusion that comes with true progress. Action entails consciously pushing beyond the limitations of what you believe you know. It entails doing what seems unnatural until you find a new natural. It entails being willing to appear silly, make mistakes, and fail miserably in the search of genuine expression. When I first started delving beyond traditional martial arts, I appeared ungainly. My moves were not refined. The strategies I was creating have yet to find their rhythm. Had I been concerned about looking well and keeping my image as a master, I would have returned to the comfort of established forms. However, true mastery is not about looking attractive. It's about being genuine, and reality is messy before it becomes magnificent. This is the practice of action, physically, emotionally, and intellectually entering the place of not knowing. To test approaches that contradict your training. To communicate feelings that do not reflect your self-image. Consider concepts that challenge your worldview, not as an intellectual exercise, but as an actual experience. Empty your cup not only in idea, but in action. The third concept is adaptive persistence. Emptying your cup is not something you do once and that's it. It is a daily practice rather than a goal to be achieved. The human mind has a natural tendency toward rigidity. It desires the comfort of assurance, the safety of the familiar, and the efficiency of routine. Without ongoing awareness, your cup will be filled with stagnant water, rigid thinking, and the illusion of knowledge. Adaptive persistence entails committing to emptiness as a way of life rather than a one-time experience. It entails acknowledging that the more you learn, the more important it is to unlearn. Returning to the beginner's mind becomes increasingly important as you gain skill. The more successful you become, the more important it is to evaluate the methods that gave you that success. I followed this principle throughout my career, continually questioning my own methods, returning to principles as if for the first time, and purposefully breaking my own rules to see if new ones may emerge. This was not because I lacked confidence in what I had created. It was because I realized that true confidence comes not from clinging to what you know, but from believing in your ability to adapt. What you know is no longer enough. This is the discipline of adaptive persistence, making emptying your cup a habit rather than an occurrence. Make time in your life for questioning, unlearning, and returning to the beginner's thinking. Not because what you've learned isn't useful, but because holding on to it restricts. You might discover in the future the ability to notice when your cup is full, the action of really emptying it. Adaptive persistence is required to prevent rigid thinking from reoccurring. These three principles, when followed consistently, will transform not only what you do, but who you are. They will set you free from the confines of your own knowledge and allow you to express yourself authentically. But I must tell you that this route is not without its challenges. When you first start emptying your cup, questioning your assumptions and letting go of approaches that gave you a sense of expertise and control, feel bewildered. You may even feel like you're going backwards rather than forwards. This is normal. This is necessary. This is the temporary discomfort that comes before a breakthrough. I went through this myself when I first started to question the traditional techniques to martial arts that I had spent years mastering. There were moments of intense uncertainty when my techniques appeared to deteriorate rather than improve, and I wondered whether I was making a huge mistake by emptying my cup of what had previously served me so well. But I realized that this confusion was not a sign of regression, but of transformation. Like a caterpillar dissolving in its cocoon before emerging as a butterfly, I was going through the required process of letting go of old patterns in order to create new ones. Had I panicked in those moments and resorted to the shelter of traditional forms, Jeet Kune Do would not have existed. My true expression would never have surfaced. This is why most people never reach their full potential. They confuse the anguish of transformation with the pain of destruction. They flee to safety. Just as a breakthrough seems possible, they refill their cups with known information rather than relying on the process of emptying. Do not make this error. Trust that what is beyond emptiness is true fullness rather than nothingness. Not ignorance, but wisdom. Not weakness, but real power. The power that comes from spontaneous expression rather than rigorous tactics. Not from accumulated knowledge, but from first-hand experience. Not from who you believe you should be, but from who you truly are behind all of the conditioning, expectations, and limits you've accepted as fact. I want you to attempt this exercise right now. Consider something you are absolutely certain of. A concept, method, or approach that has become vital to how you perceive yourself or operate in the world. Just for a moment, imagine if this assurance is absolutely incorrect, not just marginally mistaken, but fundamentally inaccurate. What possibilities would emerge if you let go of this certainty? What ways might you discover? What level of freedom are you likely to experience? I am not asking you to leave your beliefs permanently. I invite you to practice the technique of emptying your cup, even if just for a time, to make room for something new to emerge. This mental flexibility, this readiness to rethink even your most basic assumptions, is the foundation of genuine growth. This was something I did on a regular basis when learning Jeet Kune Do. I would purposely challenge a seemingly important principle, such as the significance of taking a strong stance. What if stability was derived not from rigidity, but from continual movement? What if the strongest position was none at all? What if the traditional emphasis on anchored positions was restricting rather than increasing fighting effectiveness? By emptying my cup of the belief that strong attitudes must appear a specific way, I uncovered new depths of stability and manifestations of power that would have gone unnoticed if I had stuck to old thinking. This was not about rejecting what I had learned, but about making room for it to evolve, adapt, and transform into something more in line with reality rather than rigid form. This is the essence of emptying to your cup to receive knowledge. The emptying is not the final goal. It is the required preparation for the introduction of something new, not merely new knowledge, but also new understanding. Not only skills to remember, but wisdom to embody. Not only do you learn about the world, but you also gain insight about yourself. True knowledge is not something you have. It is something you become. It changes who you are, how you see, and how you deal with life's infinite complexities. However, this transformation can only occur in the space produced by emptying your cup, letting go of your attachment to what you believe you know, opening yourself to possibilities beyond your current understanding. I see individuals around me clutching their cups of knowledge like treasures, defending their little comprehension, as if admitting they don't know everything will somehow weaken them. But the contrary is true. Your strength is not derived from what you think you know. It stems from your ability to free yourself of preconceived notions so that direct experience can teach you what no secondhand knowledge ever could. Consider the greatest innovators throughout history, whether in science, art, or any other sphere of human endeavor. What distinguished them was not that they knew more than everybody else. They were willing to question what everyone else assumed they knew. They emptied their glasses of established theories, traditional approaches, and comforting certainties. In that void, new possibilities arose, not because they increased knowledge, but because they made room for immediate insight. Einstein did not advance the theory of relativity by gathering additional information within the Newtonian framework. He emptied his cup of preconceptions about the unchanging nature of time and space, which physicists had accepted for decades. In that nothingness, a new perspective of reality may develop. Picasso did not change art by mastering established trends. He emptied his cup of conventional techniques to representation, as well as customary ideas about what art should look like. In that void, new forms of expression may emerge. And, in my own path, I did not expand Jeet Kune Do, by learning new techniques from other martial arts schools. I emptied my cup of attachment to systems, and the concept that battle should follow predetermined patterns. In that void, an approach to martial arts that went beyond style could arise. Not a new style to replace previous styles, but an awareness that true mastery exists beyond style totally. This is available to you right now in any area of life you wish to master. Not by accumulating more information, but by making room for direct insight. Not by introducing new skills, but by reducing the mental friction that limits genuine expression. Not by becoming more, but by letting go of what limits who you already are. Empty your cup of who you believe you should be and uncover your true self. Empty your cup of learned techniques and find the fundamental concept that underpins all approaches. Empty your cup of second-hand knowledge and uncover the direct experience that converts knowledge into wisdom. I promised you at the start of our time together that I would share not only philosophy, but also emancipation, a route to power that most people will never find because they are too terrified to first embrace emptiness. You now comprehend the path. You know that your cup or mind is most likely full with limiting beliefs, rigid techniques, and comfy certainties that may have benefited you in the past but now stand in the way of your future step. You recognize that emptying this cup necessitates knowledge of your attachments, action to release them, and adaptive tenacity to keep them from automatically regenerating. You understand that the discomfort of transformation is not to be avoided, but rather welcomed as a vital precursor to breakthrough. However, understanding is not enough. Knowledge is not sufficient. Even practice is insufficient if it is not integrated into your true self. The ultimate emptying of your cup occurs when you no longer view these principles as procedures to be implemented, but rather as expressions of your true essence. You are not intended to be fixed, inflexible, or unchanging. Look at nature. Everything that lives is constantly changing. The river does not hold to the water that flowed through yesterday. The tree does not fight the new growth that appears each spring. The eagle does not fight the wind. Instead, it modifies its wings to convert resistance into lift. Your mind, heart, and entire being are created for this same constant rejuvenation. Emptying your cup is not an unusual activity. It's a return to your natural state, fluid, responsive, and open to the unlimited possibilities of every moment. When you empty your cup, you do not become less. You're making room for the more authentic version of yourself to emerge, free of the constraints of what you think you know. I found this reality through martial arts, but it applies to all aspects of human experience, in your work, relationships, and spiritual development. Where growth appears to have stalled, where joy has diminished, and where authentic expression has been replaced by rigid routine, you will find a cup too full of what you think you know, too cluttered with preconceptions to receive the direct experience that can only transform information into wisdom. Empty the cup, not once, but repeatedly. Not a technique, but a way of... Not as anything apart from who you are, as an expression of your own self. Empty your cup to realize that what comes into that space is your own wisdom, free to express itself, rather than alien knowledge to be memorized. Become like water, my friend. Water that constantly empties itself to receive the following moment without opposition. Water that does not adhere to shapes, but rather adapts to each container it encounters. Water flows around, over, and through obstacles, converting their resistance into the route of least resistance. This is the path of the empty cup. This is the way to power that most people will never take because they are too terrified to first embrace emptiness. This is the emancipation I promised you. Not freedom from life's obstacles, but freedom in how you face them. Authority from inside, rather than authority over others, requires no external validation. Not knowledge to defend, but wisdom that is always renewed by the courage to not know. Empty your cup and realize that what you've been looking for through accumulation can only be found by letting go. Empty your cup and experience the freedom that comes from living the questions rather than having all of the answers. Empty your cup and recognize that true mastery isn't about becoming perfect, but rather about becoming yourself, authentic, powerful, and beautiful. The cup is in your hands. The choice is yours. Will you continue to protect your limitations, or will you have the guts to pour them out and stand empty in the face of this moment's unlimited possibilities? Empty your cup, my friend, not to become empty, but to discover a fullness that exceeds your cluttered mind's expectations. Empty your cup to ultimately absorb the truth that will change not only what you do, but who you are.